Hello everyone, today I will be trying to create an Across the Obelisk tier list. This tier list will be based on Madness 16 plus, so you are more than likely going to have restricted power on, equalizer, resisted monsters, poverty, and all of these. I'm probably playing around here, M7, M8, M9. Those types of levels are going to be the base of this tier list. It's also going to be the focus of OTK, aka one shot kill, one turn kill, I mean. This means that strategies that will take more than one turn will be ranked lower on this list. I will also heavily take into consideration the X1 of the game, as on higher madness that actually becomes one of the hardest parts of the game. And the second hardest being the final boss because it has so much more HP than anything else you've fought before that. But Act 1 is the main struggle with everything basically. So heroes that do great there will be ranked a lot higher. And yeah, just know that this tier list does not mean that some heroes are trash. Just because a hero is ranked lower than the other does not mean that they are impossible to run. You will see later that some heroes will receive the D tier, but that's just because they might struggle a lot more in Act 1. It does not mean that they are trash at all. But we are going to start with Althea. Althea is the newest hero that got added with her DLC, and she is already great. She hasn't been here for long yet, so it's hard to rank her yet, but we will definitely try. She has Echo Magic here as their starting spell, so when you play an Echo spell you gain 1 Resonance, which is already just a great starting uh, trait to have. Then you can level that up into either Into the Void, which gives her Energize and copies one of the echo spells from discard pile and reduces its cost. It does become Vanish, but if we look at all the echo spells available, you realize that most of them are 3 cost anyway, so they will just become free card to play, which isn't bad at all. The other side is Echoes of Power, which means the next 4 echo spell you gain 1 Resonance and also copy an echo spell from your discard pile into your hand. But now it adds Repeat 1, which is just a lot better most times. As for example on Traumatic Vision, you add Repeat 1 to that, now deals auto damage twice. So this is just going to be an insane amount. And we'll also just add this twice, like with the other side. So overall that's the better option for that. For level 3 we have Energetic Resonance, which means that while she is at max charges, which is now 8 charges, the entire party gains +3 energy regeneration. As said, I'm focusing this based on 1 turn kill, so having this is not useful at all in there, but having it on a team that might just take like 2 or 3 turns even, this becomes a lot more valuable. Because anything past turn 1, in my experience, is that you have a lot less energy as you actually play. So if you can get to 8 charges, this will help a lot with that. But Resonance Mind is also an option, which means that, well, when Althea reaches maximum resonance, each hero mind damage increases by 2 for every resonance stack they have. So with the explanation here, it basically means that she does double damage from resonance while at max resonance charges, which is just better most times, because her skills will already apply a lot of insane, so having 3 extra charges on resonance does not matter that much at all for insane. Recollection is honestly not even that bad, but since this is a tier list based for damage dealers, it's not great. It's definitely more of a tank thing, so if you can give her taunt or something, she can just take a hit, gain evasion, dodge, take another hit, etc, etc. And spell sword means that it's you keep taking less damage. But the other side is so much better for damage, because when you apply Resonance, you apply Insane to all monsters, and then immediately gain 2 free spells to play. If you have the unupgraded version, you only get 1 of the shards, but that's still just a free card to deal more damage with. And then you also, that lasts 6 uses, so it's up to 12 shards that you can gain. All free, so it's an insane amount. Up here for level 5 we have Madness Speech, which increases her Dark and Insane application and makes her heal herself. In OTK there's no reason to take this one, as Fractured Mind means that all damage done plus 25% and Insanity on enemies reduces mind resistance by an additional 2% per charge. So this means that at Madness 100 you have restricted powers, you can only have 100 Insane. However, since Insane already reduces the mind resistance by 1 per charge, with that skill it becomes minus 3% per charge, meaning you can have a maximum of up to 300% reduction, which just already makes vulnerable useless, for example, since you can just keep playing spells with this and this and this and just easily max it out. The only reason I do Madness Speech is when you don't do an OTK style deck and then use, I think it's this one, because that's per insane charge, so having a lot of insane charges helps there. Or if you, yeah, and then I'd use this together with Nesclax, but I will come to him eventually. But overall she already seems insane. Then we go to our starting deck. Couldnt is also insane. Immediately gives her some resonance, reduce the cost of the mind spell she draws and put it into her hand. So if we look into mind spells that she can have, you have, now you could just have a 3 of these, which just gives you 3 free of these. It immediately gives you resonance as well. Or it could be a free Scream of Resonance, could be free Mindstorm. Echo spells are, by the way, also just mind spells, so you can just make this free, for example. Well, almost free, which is insane. And she starts with 2 of those in her deck, and that's honestly one of the best cards that got added with her update. I will talk more about this one specifically later on with another hero, but this just makes her so great already. Up to the point where the rest doesn't matter that much, but there's still great options. She has 3 ones she can make free immediately. You can keep this one to just gain more resonance, but she won't need it because of the echo spells. And then she can just deal extra damage at the start of turn. Now she does still mind damage, so that damage gets increased by Bless, Powerful and Fury, like everything. But since it's mind damage, you can combine it together with Gustav to use this passive to increase mind damage with 1 per charge. So she will do an insane amount of damage. Especially once you just have all their resistances reduced, she will just deal an absolute insane amount of damage. So if you go back to the ranking, she is new, so it is still hard to actually place her properly since she hasn't been used that much compared to all the other heroes. However, everything I've just talked about makes her an immediate S tier for me. Her Act 1 is honestly pretty easy because of her starting kits. She can immediately max her own resonance, just deal a lot of damage, apply a lot of insane, and just kaboom. And then eventually she just continues with that since her level ups are very, very good. You will just keep her power level up and up and up. And I've tried her a couple times and she has been no struggle for me at all. So for me she's going to be an immediate S tier. Up next is Amelia. Amelia is once again a mage, and she focuses on Spell Sword, which is her kinda special thing. There are some small ways for other heroes to gain it, but she will definitely be the easiest way to obtain it. Spell Sword makes damage done spell sword increases the damage done, but reduces damage taken, which is honestly insane. She then has level ups that can focus either on mind damage or on frost damage. Frost damage is usually better, purely because of the cards that are in there, and that mages have access to, but the cards that got added with Althea updates might actually prove really helpful for this. With her Arcane Reflux, when she plays a spell, introduce the cost of the highest cost spell in her hands by 1, assuming they are 3 cost or above. This means that it will stay at least 2 cost, trigger an Eldritch either way, so that's not bad at all. Reach or Cold increases the chill charges and deals damage from the next 3 spells she deals to the highest attack at the highest HP enemy. That is honestly pretty good, especially that early on that you get it, because she starts with 2 Frost Novas, which is insane, so she can easily just deal with the AoE of all enemies. So her main struggle will be early on the bosses, and this will hugely help against that. Then for level 3 you have Time Loop, which changes spell card type requirements of Eldritch to any card. So there can be skills, there can be what else does she have access to? She is a mage, so skill, book. I think that's it. So then step melee. Defenses also exist, so I can make any 2 costs of that. Just also give her spell swords, which is not bad. But when she reaches 5 spell swords, she shovels all the mage cards in her vanish spell into her deck, with cost reduced by 3, and she gains 1 inspire. So that's actually, you can have some great cheese with that, where you just play a bunch of vanish spells that are relatively high in cost. You then reach 5 spell swords, and then you can just do it again. So while it is once per combat, that is usually enough, quite easily. Or you go Frost Swords, which reduce the cost requirement of Eldritch to 1 or more energy, but spell sword increase all damage done by 1 per charge instead. When you reach 5 spell swords, you put a Frost Discharge card into your hand. Generally this is the better option, since she is usually also going to be a frost damage dealer, but it makes it a lot easier to gain spell swords, and the Frost Discharge is basically an Eldritch Discharge, but only frost damage. And it's free, so you can just spam it afterwards. I'm pretty sure it also doesn't consume your spell swords, but I'm not certain. For level 4 we have Wrist Force, which transforms the damage to mind, which does improve her mind damage side a whole lot, since she can have all these cool spells that are usually elemental focus. So if you just look in here quickly, you can have like Wolf Lightning deal mind damage, you can have, what are you called again? Blizzard deal mind damage, you can have, there's the one I'm thinking of, it's, no, not Ice Comet, but that's also not bad. Winter Orb. You can have Winter Orb deal mind damage, which is, that's like one of the best frost cards ever, so. And it also, when she applies spell switch, she deals damage to all enemies and applies that to all enemies. So that's a very good level up for her mind damage. And it's honestly when it becomes very good since it transforms. This does mean that stuff that's like this one, that has 2 different damage types, will become 1 big hit instead. As in usually what happens in Auto and Across the Obelisk, Auto, is that Sharp, Blast, Powerful, and Fury will apply to the first hit, and then separately apply to the second hit, meaning you basically benefit from all the buffs twice. However, since they're both the same damage types, they first get mushed together into 1 hit, and then all those buffs get applied. So that does make this one a bit weaker, but still not bad. Ice Palace, when she applies Spell Sword, all heroes gain shield, block, and she gains extra block, and she applies shield to herself, which is actually great, since if you look in here, pretty sure it's here. Yeah, this one. When she applies chill, she gains 3 block. And that block is going to be very useful for what I just showed, being Winter Orb. As Winter Orb has a version that deals damage based on block. So having any block application to yourself will hugely improve that damage. Like to a lot more than any other of the versions that you can have of this. So, at this mean it vanished, so you could combine kinda this like this, but you are just going to have to try stuff out with her. She's definitely one of the heroes that you can easily try multiple times with, since her level ups can interact with each other very differently. For level 5 we either have Time Paradox, which means she gains a time loop trait. So if you chose this here, you can, if you chose this at the start, you can choose this to also gain a time loop. But if you already had it, then it can be activated twice per combat. And once per combat, when you play the Eldritch Discard charge, put a copy of the cost 0 into your deck. So this means you can play this one twice easily as well. And since it's vanished, you can get it back from here as well. So eventually you'll just, with this trait, you can theoretically play it 6 times in one turn. And at the very least in one combat. Or you choose Unlimited Blades, which means that if you have less than 3 spell swords charges at the start of turn, you gain up to 3 with the 3 of them, and the spell sword maximum charge are increased to 12. So if you chose this one here as well, it will only be 1 damage increase per spell sword, but now it will be 12 total, which will also buff this, so it's based on your spell swords times 5. So previous maximum was 5, meaning it was 25. Now it's 12, meaning it's 60 damage to start with, which is still pretty huge. So yeah, looking at our starting deck, it's mostly Frost focus as well. And Frost has not that bad of an Act 1 because of Wet. With this perk means it's not as good as having Sharp or Bless, but this is a lot easier to spam, so Act 1 is actually better most times, even if it does get affected by Bless, Sharp, Powerful, or Fury. It's still just amazing. And then you can have Ray of Frost, which it's not great, but it can be your big damage against the boss. Ice Barrier is not that good. Maybe later on, but at the start is definitely not worth it. As you can see, you can just make her into a tank, but since it's based on damage dealer OTK, one turn kill, it's not relevant. This is great, since usually you rare cards are disabled in the start in town. So, and also reduced uncommon cards available by 1. So this is an uncommon card, meaning instead of being able to buy 2 in the start in town, you can only buy 1 of them. So this means that you actually can have 3, and 3 of these can just deal with all the enemies in AoE type fights. You can just finish them off with Ice Lances. So she actually has a great starting deck, you don't have to change too much about her. And she also has the benefit of being able to easily go through all the portals and being able to reduce their stuff, making them easier to fight. So after saying all that, she is actually very great, so I will still rank her in S tier. This is hard to decide, but I believe that Althea is still better, even if she is very new. All her stuff seems so much better. So Amelia is going into second place for now. So next up is Andrin. He is finally a non-mage. He is a ranger scout. And he is one of the 4 heroes that you actually start the game with. Now he did recently get a balance patch basically. He got better basically. Together with Magnus he got a balance patch, and Magnus is a lot better now. But he has the innate trait of Trailblazer. At the start of his turn, he gains 1 fast. If he already has fast, he gains 2 sharp. It's not terrible. It's a fine passive, honestly. As a damage dealer, it's just basically 2 sharp, since usually, because he is very fast, if we can remove his speed perks, but then he still is 18 speed. As you can see, we have this is the classic, which is a lot weaker, but the reworked is so much better. But yeah, he is very fast, so you're going to have to use someone else fast to make sure they outspeed and make all his allies outspeed, so that's going to be your main struggle with him, especially early on. He has Maneuver, which when you play a card, for every energy used, he draws a card, gains block, gains evasion, and gains taunt. This is definitely not a damage dealer, so immediately moving on to Wild Hunt. When you play a card, for every energy used, apply 2 mark to a random monster. It should become 4 mark with the mark charges plus 2 over here. And the last 2 turns, so you can play a lot of cards in the 1 turn and then you already apply a lot of mark, which is especially good against a single enemy, so like a boss. But it's still okay, to be honest. Then we go to Master Ranger, which when you play a range attack that costs energy, refund 1 and gain 1 powerful. The refund is nice, the powerful is not that great. You can easily max it from its supports once again. Finesse, when you play a melee attack that costs energy, refund 1 and apply a mark to a random enemy. That is honestly better, but it does mean that you are going to be focused into melee attacks. Yes, serrated weapons, which is an enchantment on self that increases all damage, increases sharp charges, and when he deals damage, he applies a lot of bleed, gains a sharp, and that lasts 6 uses. However, with support you should easily be able to max sharp on yourself anyway, so this is not that good, and bleed and all and other damage over time is honestly not that great of a damage source. But if you look at the other option, which is Riposte, no clue how you pronounce it, but when you block you deal slash damage to all enemies and apply mark to all enemies. Problem with this is that you basically are forced to, well, game block, and it's not that good because it means that you've already had your turn, so you didn't one-shot everyone, so you're going to rely on being hit, for which you want the taunt, which means you're actually just going for, once again, the tank engine, which feels bad. So usually I just get rid of either of these, doesn't matter what I choose. And you have sharpshooting, where you play a ranged attack, gain 2 plus X sharp, where X equals ranged attacks played this turn divided by 2. So the more ranged attacks you play, just the more sharp you get every time you play them. Or a mark for that. Death, mark plus 3, when you damage an enemy with a hit, deal slash damage equal to the mark charges. I'm pretty certain this doesn't apply the bless, powerful and fury bonus, or sharp. So it's alright. So his level ups are definitely weaker than Althea and Amelia, and they're not great overall. However, if you look at his starting deck, he has supportive, okay, it's not good. This is also not good, that's even harder to make defeat control. You have Hunter's Mark, which is honestly not great. This is the main reason I believe he's still good, because the extra energy will actually allow him to play bigger cards, more cards, so that can just be very helpful in Act 1 to be a lot more consistent. This is also not great, so this you're going to get rid of, you're going to get rid of this, going to get rid of either of these, probably both either way, to be honest. Always this at least, I believe. I mean, maybe you've upgraded to this, but that's a bit expensive. And honestly, overall, he's still pretty decent. Especially if you look at his non-rework state. He didn't only gained 1 fast, he didn't gain taunt, it has only lasted 1 turn, it just reduced the cost. This one used to gain powerful instead of flying mark. They supplied a lot less bleed and a lot less sharp. They choose to only attack the one target that hit him and use the cost energy. They choose to just gain 2 sharp every time. They choose to just be +3 mark. So his redesign did get a lot better. And as you can see with his redesign, he also went from 2 ruptures to 0 ruptures and increased the hunter's mark. So overall improved a lot actually. So overall he is kind of weak with his level ups overall. But his starting deck helps a lot with it. So I am probably going to give him either A tier or B tier. I think I'm going for B tier right now just because his level ups don't help that much. And maxing and well increasing sharp array itself isn't that important unless you can just guaranteed max it on yourself. Which he might be able to do with the ranged attacks, I'm not certain. But that's only at max level, which at that point you already have all the stuff ready to max it anyway. So for now I believe I'm going to go for B tier. Up next we have Bernard. He's actually the first dual class we will be talking about here. He is, well, as you can see from the background, he is a dual class of Scout, because of the green, and Priest, healers. His innate trait is at the start of your turn apply 1 poison and 1 rust to a random enemy, which is honestly pretty bad since, well, as I said before, damage over time is not great and rust doesn't do that much. Especially poison is not great since it deals damage at the end of turn instead of burn and bleed which is start of turn. So that already makes it a lot worse. And then we have Healing Flask, which is obviously supportive side. It heals, applies regen and vitality for the next 4 flasks, or salt water, which means the next 4 flask. For every energy used, it applies poison, wet, and rust to a random monster. This is honestly kinda counter synergetic since the rust increases the effect of poison, which, as we said before, poison is not great, but it reduces the effect of wet. So this means that the wet is actually pretty terrible. I'm pretty sure there's a way to, yeah, you can use detoxify to remove the poison and rust, which just leaves you with the wet. That's not that bad, but still not a great passive at all, especially seems more supportive. Now I have Healer Duality. When you play a healer card, reduce the cost of the highest cost scout card in your hand by 1 until discarded. And when you play a scout card, reduce the cost of the highest cost healer card in your hand by 1 until discarded, which can trigger 3 times per turn. A lot of dual class actually have this type of passive, so anytime I will talk about this kind of level up in the future, I will just call it the duality, since it does the same thing every time, but for the 2 classes that they are. Or you can choose Corrosion, which is Rust +1. At the end of your turn, apply 1 poison to all monsters for each wet charge on them, and apply 1 vulnerable charge for each rust charge on them. See, this is actually terrible for damage dealers since it's end of turn, so his turn is already went away. So applying all the vulnerables useless at that point, especially since poison doesn't care about resistances. Then you have Ancient Shell, which increases all his own resistances, makes him apply 1 more buffer charge. In the next 5 skills, all heroes gain a shield, regen, and mitigate, and he suffers 1 rust himself. This is once again a supportive side. Dark Tide in X4 skill, deal 10 shadow damage to all monsters, apply 3 dark, 2 wet to all monsters. This is great if you want more wet, but he doesn't really have a way to take advantage of that since he doesn't deal cold or lightning damage, which are the only 2 ways that wet is remotely useful. And shadow damage seems weird in here. It's great if you go for something like slashing or piercing as main damage, then You could use the one passive, the one perk where Sharpen also increases shadow damage, which I will show real quick. It's over here. Sharpen the 0 also increases shadow damage by 1 per charge. But that's all the way up to here, which is way too late, and it's only for skills. So it's not even attacks or spells or whatever. So it's not that great again. Then we have Philosopher's Stone at the end of turn. Again, not great. Grants 2 bless and 2 fatality to all heroes. When 1 plus 1 more for each rush charge on you. Duality can be activated 4 times per turn. This whole side is just a supporter side. So that isn't worth it at all as damage dealer. You have Alcahest. Poison plus 2, Rust plus 1, Vulnerable plus 1. Vulnerable monsters have plus 8 maximum charges. This is pretty good to have plus 8 maximum charges, since with Madness and Resistant monsters, maximum vulnerable charges on monsters are 6. So this means that they will only reduce 30% of their resistances. So if an 8 extra means you can do 40% extra reduction, which means 70% total, which makes a lot better, honestly. But it still doesn't save him as a damage dealer. This starter deck is also terrible for a damage dealer. You have to pretty much replace his whole deck. None of this really helps him. And then you have low speed, which is easily going to be the last in your team. But the main problem is at that point going to be to outspeed the enemy, which sucks. So overall he is actually pretty weak compared to others, that is. So I am going to be putting him pretty low on the list. And he's going to be our first C tier. These 3 are easily better than him because of their skills, starting decks, etc. And Bernard is just, here's the 2 classes that are great to have as a support hero. For damage dealer, healers don't have really any good damage cards, which is their main problem. Next up is Bree, which is our first warrior on this list. She is going to be a blunt focused warrior. She has the starting trait of, at the start of combat she gains 5 thorns, which thorns is pretty weak overall, since as described above it deals 1 piercing damage to the attacker when the target is hit per charge, and removes 1 charge when it happens. This damage can be blocked and is not affected by other modifiers besides resistances. Thorns does have a couple ways to increase damage, which does not apply to Sharp, Bless, Powerful, Fury, or any of that stuff. One of the ways is to make it deal holy damage, so you can use Sanctify to reduce the resistances together with Vulnerable. And the other way is Rust, which you can actually Rust on enemies increases thorn damage taken by 5% per charge, but no longer prevents 1 reinforced per charge. So this could be good with like a supportive Bernard for that reason, but then you would have to fully lean into Thorn for that to be worth it. Our level 2 is Unforgiven Nature, which is easily your best level up. It increases crack and thorn charges by +1. Damage it hits, she deals extra blunt damage and applies more crack. This lasts the whole turn, so any card you play during that turn will just deal an extra hit. Or you have defense strategy. Basically, this is the supporter side. Countermeasures, thorns +1, gain 3 thorns when damaged, up to 3 times per round. Once again, thorns is not great. Tactician at the start of your turn, reduce the cost of skill cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. Honestly, for damage dealer, I'd probably still take Tactician over that, unless you're specifically going for thorns. Yeah, Stampede, damage by others, deal blunt to all monsters, apply crack to all monsters, gain vitality and thorns, last 4 uses. The problem with this is that you do have to get damaged, so you cannot have block at all, which is annoying, and once again you have to get hit. so it's not that great. Command and Conquer is once again the supportive side. Together with this, the powerful may be worth it, but these two are both not great for a damage dealer. And you either have Queen of Thorns, whenever you would gain block charges instead of gain a block, gain 30% of those charges as thorns. Still not great. And Tireless, and you regen +1 immune to fatigue. So a lot of blunts and thorns in here. This is easily the best due to the damage with hit, dealing more blunt damage and applying crack. Her starter deck's also not that great. This is not good for damage, this is not good for damage, this is not a good one in the current state. This also no good, this also no good. This is the only real good one here. But it still costs 1, so you're probably going to be better off just using other cards still. If you look at here, you're probably going to want something along the lines of ground slams combined with maybe a headbutt, and then punches for the rest, all in Act 1. But that's the problem with Blunt, is that, and her specifically, is that Act 1 is a high struggle, but she at least only has to struggle for half of Act 1, because once you get this passive, the game is basically won already. This is super OP. Anyone you have with this will generally they have like the struggle before they get this, and then once they get this, it becomes so much easier. However, since she does struggle early on before the level 2, I am going to put her lower than I would actually like her. I was originally, if she didn't struggle in Act 1, I would easily place her in A of S tier. But because of those struggles, she's going down to B tier. She is better than Andrin in my opinion, because once you have level 2, that's insanely good. But she doesn't have any ways to gain extra energy to deal more AoE cards. And a common thing with blunt strategy is actually that you also run on, if we go into here real quick, that you run, what's it called? Like I think sweep and strike or something along those lines to actually deal damage to enemies. Blade storm is also quite common for that. Cleave, stuff like that is actually quite common for blunt strategies, purely because they struggle so much in Act 1. Past Act 1 she will do great honestly, but that starter struggle really gets to her, and it will actually be a problem of some other heroes on here as well. Up next is Cornelius, which is once again a mage. He is the mage who heavily focuses on being a burn mage. He has the starting trait of Ardent. At the start of your turn, gain 2 powerful and suffer 2 burn. It's honestly not that great, since once again we're going for OTK high madness. You should already have powerful figured out before his turn starts. But it's alright. It means that you can play around with it a bit more. Its first level 2 is the next 3 spells deal fire damage to the highest HP monster and applies burn to them. And it's +3 burn charge, so there's actually 7 burn charge to the highest HP monster. And then whatever card you play, that will also apply burn to them. Or he has Fireproof, which increases burn resistance by 33%, and when he's damaged by others, he applies 4 burn to them. So that's 8 uses, but since we're going for OTK, this is useless. Incendiary, when dealing damage with a hit, apply 3 burn, so that's just a lot more burn that you can easily apply. Or Firestarter, when you play a fire spell card that costs energy, refund 1 energy and apply 1 burn to a random enemy. This is probably better if he's your main damage dealer, because it basically gives him 3 extra energy that he can play with, which is a very good trade-off, since usually you want direct damage, so this is, generally speaking, not good for him as a damage dealer. But as support, it's not that bad. Level 4 we have World in Flames. This is where you really get going. The next 3 fire spells gain 4 powerful, put Ember Storm into your hand. So at this point he can also just max his own powerful if needed. But once again we're going for proper high OTK madness. Support should do the powerful. But Ambush Storm is basically, you basically have just have 3 free AoE cards. Or Phoenix, which increases your fire damage by 5, transforms your damage to fire, and when you die you resurrect with 45% HP, which lasts 1 use. This generally sounds like the better option, but transform can be really useful, because as we've talked about before, Winter Orb exists. Winter Orbs are pretty cheap, that just repeats. However, you do have to do fire spells here, so it's probably going to be this always. Then if you chose this one, you go for Wall of Flames. If you chose Incendiary, you're probably going for Phoenix. That's how I would choose it. But then we go to here, level 5, which is either burn plus 4. Okay. It's a lot of burn that you apply at this point, so you probably don't need it anymore. Or Avatar or Fire, which means fire damage done plus 6%, but all resistances minus 30% except fire resistance. This is so much better, because it's pretty much just a 60% damage bonus, which can really help you against the last boss. And since we are once again playing on High Madness, as I've talked about like 5 times at this point, do have restricted power, which means the max burn charge is going to be 200. So this also is just not that great. His starter deck for damage dealer is these are not that useful. If he was support, it's actually great, but as a damage dealer, not really. This is this is not that great either. This is not that great. This is not that great. This is also not that great. Also not that great. It's a free repeat that deals damage, so could be worse, but it's a random monster, so that usually is what it makes it harder to play with. So overall, he's honestly not that strong. Even as a fire mage, he is not the best fire mage, and the next hero will actually show you exactly why that is, but overall, I am probably going to put him somewhere in the B tier. He does have the same struggles as Bernard has, but he does definitely have some struggles, especially since fire damage overall is harder to play with, since it doesn't have something like wet that lightning and cold have, and also does have something like sharpen that's if we quickly look back, there's something like sharpen that heavily increases the damage of slashing and piercing. If you look at perks, it only has fortify, which is this one. Fortify on this hero can stack and increase blunt and fire damage by 1% by 1 per charge, maximum charge of 50. But if you look at all the possible fortify application, for mage itself it's just this, which already is not great choices, are not great choices. And then for warriors we have these options, which as you can see are either are just all high on cost, honestly. So if we just look at sharp, you have one cost with repeat up to, so you can just do more if you want to. But yeah, it makes it a big struggle in Act 1. The burn can help, but the problem with fire in Act 1 is that you're in the general route you want to go to hatch, and in the hatch are a lot of fire enemies which have high fire resistances. Especially the boss in there is high fire resistance, so you're going to really struggle with OTK there. So overall, he is definitely going to be tier. I don't know if I want him before. I'm probably going to put him here for now. But he is also is definitely like Cornelius with the Fortify, but she has the great level too, so I'm going to put her higher. And Endrin is going to go lower because of his high speed struggles. His level up's not really helping him that much at all. But he does have the great start and energy that he can extra apply. So yeah. Next up is Evelyn. She is like Andrian, one of the first heroes you unlock, and she's actually a great mage. If we quickly look at her level ups, she starts with the innate trade-off at start of your turn, gain 1 insulate. Terrible, honestly, especially for OTK. But I wanted to go to element proliferation. Then with your hit, she applies 3 of every elemental curse. So that's spark, burn, and chill. And it lasts the whole turn. But she also has the enchant weapons, which discover 3 enchantments and place 1 into your hand. And each enchantment is basically transforming into that specific damage type, increasing the damage of that type, and then for the next 14 hits, she applies the curse of that type. So if you choose this, you can basically turn your damage into anything you want, as long as it's elemental. Which is actually pretty good. You can then go for level 3 for Elemental Amplifier, which increases Burn, Chill and Spark +2. First style is not great at all, it's actually pretty terrible. Because it's either gain Powerful, not needed, Block, not needed, or you use Spell, which also not needed. Then you either have Spell Echo, which is the next spell, gain 6 Powerful. Powerful is not that good, but okay. And put a copy of it into your hand. This is great. This just basically means you have, for one spell, you can just have 2 of the same. You can just spam them twice. Arcane Conduit is not good at all for damage dealer OTK. Because when you play a card, for every energy used, draw 1, gain Powerful and Shields, last 6 uses. This is definitely more of a supportive type. For level 5 you have Glass Cannon, all damage done, +6% and max HP -25. This is very similar to Avatar or Fire from Cornelius, except it applies to all damage. So basically she can just transform into anything and isn't forced to just play into fire spells. Elemental Weaver, when you play a fire spell, cold spell or lightning spell card, gain 1 energy, once per turn and for each card type, so you can only gain a max of 3 energy. This is honestly pretty terrible, especially compared to Glass Cannon. Her starting deck is not that great for a damage dealer. She does start with Mana Gem, similar to Andrin with his Adrenaline. So she does have starting extra energy, which is great. But everything behind that is honestly pretty terrible for a damage dealer. This also isn't that good. That deals 2 different damage types. She's probably going to be best as a cold damage dealer, at least in Act 1, because of wet and the fact that cold actually has some great cards to deal with Act 1. As we just look, for example, cold. What can I do? Uncommon. Like if you look in here, for electricity you have electricity manual for lightning, which is fine. You have Amber Storm, which is actually pretty good for fire. Firestorm is quite expensive. Here you have Frost Nova, which is basically, if you have 2 Frost Novas, that's basically the same thing as a Firestorm. And then you also have, actually is there anything else for this? Fire does have the Live in Flame, which is okay. This is pretty good, because it jumps 3 times and does plus 50% each time. But this is like the cold one, which is over here, Frost Nova. Zero Nova is a 3 cost, which makes it so much worse. And yeah, overall cold is just a better option for her to at least start with. If you choose enchant weapons, you can always just choose whatever damage type you want. But generally, it also depends what perks you choose, as especially these can make a huge difference. But yeah, she is clearly a better option than Cornelius, because she actually has some ways to massively increase her damage. So she's easily going into actually probably A tier. It's just easier. The transform really saves her early on with the enchanted weapons. And she just keeps going with every level up. All the ones below her are kind of like one good level up or one good starting deck. After that they are basically done. And Cornelius mainly has the problem of being fire, a forced fire damage dealer at the start, which is not great at all. So she has the options and is easily better than him. So yeah, she's easily going into A tier as the first hero going into A tier. Up next is Grouply, which is once again a warrior. He is actually pretty good as a warrior. He has the starting trait of Furious. At the start of your turn, gain 2 Fury. It's not that great as a trait. I mean, with the perk of this one, which increases the damage by 5% per charge, it's basically a free plus 2 plus 10% damage. Since you also need this one, it's plus 15% for free, which is fine. Problem with Fury in here is that pretty much if you have a mage to apply bleed with arcane drain, so either this one or this one, then you use transfusion to apply that bleed to yourself, and then use burning bloods to transform the bleed into burn and fury. But he actually can apply a lot of extra fury to himself, which is partially because of Furious, but also because of his starting item, Vigorous Fury. Because you can do 5 Inspire to him, and then so he draws 10 cards, and then make sure he doesn't draw the other 5 by discarding them. They play a couple of cards early on, so he gets more, and they can get usually up to 10 Fury from this, so that's plus 50% already. Generally it's, I think, at least 5 easily, so that's 25% already. So he's definitely pretty good in Act 1. He also has Onslaught, in the next attack draw 1 card, reduce the cost of 4 highest cost cards in hand by 1 until discarded. So this will just cheapen his deck even more. Then you also have Grudge, which is not great. Pure charge plus 1, damage by others, deal 12 slashing damage, gain 3 fury, and the last 4 uses. Once again, this is, you need to get hit, so it's after his turn, meaning it's not a grade of OTK anymore. You can go for Bloody at level 3, when dealing damage with a hit applied to a bleed. Reduce bleed applied by fury by 50%. Not great at all. Offense Mastery, at the start of your turn, reduce the cost of melee attack cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. This is fine. I'd rather see something more unique here, because Offense Mastery is... stuff like that is used a lot. Because if you just, for example, look at the old engine, this used to be pretty much the same thing. Brains Mastery. Now it's Master Ranger. And you will see dot mastery a lot in future heroes as well that I will discuss. So it's kind of boring at this point. For level 4 you have Red Storm. Bleed charge plus 4, the next 4 attack, apply 3 bleed to all monsters. So basically you only do this if you have bloody as well. So you apply a lot of bleed to the enemies. Or dual wield, which is easily the better option. The next melee attack, gain 8 fury, put a copy of it into your hand, cost 0 and vanish. So if you, for example, look at, well, you can do Blaze Storm, which is then going to be free, or the far superior option, which is, let's see, where are you? Whirlwind. I think you can see why it is a superior option. It's so much better. Then you have for level 5 Endless Fury, which is plus 3, or Tierlist, which is energy regen +1 immune to fatigue. These are not that interesting. So those level ups are okay. It's mostly being carried by dual wield, honestly. Onslaught is also not that bad, so it's these two that are really carrying that part. His starting deck is pretty good overall. Yes, this obviously, which gives him a lot of extra fury at the start, especially H1. This is very useful. Then he has Blood Rage to gain more energy, which can usually mean he can either play these sharpened for himself, or he can just play an extra card to deal more damage. Overall, it's actually pretty great. It's just he doesn't do all that I'd like for him to do to be S tier. As these perform exceptionally well with their perfect setups basically. Yeah, this one is just pretty good. So I will put him in A tier, but definitely at the top for now. Because he has a way easier time than Evelyn. Purely because he also has Sharpen. And with Vulnerable you can also specify it to be targeted against slash inversion of blunt specifically. So it's reduced to 8% per charge instead of 5. Which is a huge deal when you're at M16 plus because of the resistant monsters, which caps the vulnerability charges at 6 instead of 10. So that's mainly going to be why. He's going to be higher than Evelyn. And also because he is a lot more consistent, in my opinion, because of his fury and of the extra energy he gives himself. But I still believe these two do a lot better. Not only early on, but also later on. So he is going to in the top for A tier for now. Up next we have Gustav. Gustav is another scout damage dealer, which he's actually insanely good. He has Cantor. At the start of your turn, if you don't have any stance against stands to 1. His level 2 is so good. When you apply a Assault spell, deal 10 mind damage, apply 3 insane to the highest HP monster, and gain 1 sharp, and the last one whole turn. And these, Chant of Accuracy, that just gives himself sharpen and can be free, also count as sound spells, meaning that you basically gain double sharp from them. So it's either 3 sharp from them, or you this one selected, meaning you get 5 sharp from every single one you play. His other side is Melodic Rhythm, which is heal down +2, charge, regen charge +1. The next 4 sound spell, all heroes recover 5% HP. Supporter side, so yeah. Level 3 is Shrill Tone, sharp +1. So it's either going to be per chant of accuracy, it's either going to be 5 sharp or even up to 7 sharp per use of them. A sharp on here is also increased on mind damage by 1 per charge, as I said before with Althea. The other side is when you play a sound spell card that costs energy, refund 1 energy and grants 2 regeneration to the most damaged hero. I've honestly never seen this one be useful, because as usually you either want him as damage dealer, and then this is good, so you can also really heavily deal mind damage, or you're going to use him as support with another mind damage dealer, meaning you also want this passive skill. For level 4 you have Ethereal Weapons. Mind damage +2, transform damage to mind. Every turn put Ethereal Knives into your hands, which lasts 4 uses and counts as a small weapon. It's a fine level up, it's at every turn, so it's after the turn you've used it, it starts being useful. So it's not that great for the OTK way. The other way is Encore. The next soul spell gains 6 regeneration, put a copy of it into your hand, cost 0 and vanish. Now this is amazing, since you can either use a chant of accuracy and just get more sharp from them, or if you go in here, you can get a free sound spell to deal damage with. For example, Neverending Story, just fine to choose, but use something like Reverberant Verse is far superior to it, since it repeats without having to invest extra energy into it. So it's basically amazing against bosses. You also can just do Vexing Crescendo, which is going to be able to deal with AoE over everything. So that's definitely going to be his better choice for OTK. For level 5 he has White Sleeves, so when you play a small card, put a random small weapon card into your hand with cost 0 and vanish up to 2 times a turn, or acquire on your first turn grant stand 1 to all heroes. Stand at 3 is not removed at the end of turn. These don't really matter, you're probably going to do this just for extra hits, but overall it won't change as much as Encore and Heavy Metal will, or Shrill Tone even. Now his starting deck has Power Slave, which is amazing. It gives himself powerful, sharp, and deals a lot of damage. So it's probably one of my favorite starting cards, honestly. I've had a run with him where I've been able to play this card up to like 6 times because of Encore and stuff. That's great. He can give himself a lot of free sharp, which is amazing. But the rest you do kind of have to replace. He does deal a lot of more piercing damage, at least this starting card, so you can easily just go for this perk to increase the piercing damage by 1.5% per 1.5 per charge, meaning you have an easy Act 1, which he already has easily, and then you can just do mind damage from Act 2 or 3 and on. Now he is actually quite interesting because of Heavy Metal. You, unlike any other piercing or slashing or even shadow damage dealer, you don't need any extra warrior or scouts to apply sharp to him. I've had a couple runs with him where I was easily able to just use like 3 or 3 versions of this, 1 or 2 of these, and then together with this I was easily able to max my own sharp. So he is actually great for that, meaning this Act 1 is also very easy. So overall I am going to be putting him in the S tier. I don't know if I should put him above Melia. I do think I will, because he is so much better in Act 1. And his self-sharp application will prove very useful if you use him properly. Up next is Heiner. Heiner is another warrior and he's actually pretty interesting because of his skills. He has the innate trait of Unbreakable. At the start of combat all heroes can block and 1 fortify, which honestly pretty good. His level 2 is transform damage to fire. So you deal fire damage. When you block, deal fire damage to all monsters and apply a burn to all monsters, which lasts 12 uses. And his other side is Steel Forge, which is the supported side again. When you block, all heroes can block and fortify. Iron Furnace. When you play an attack card, gain +1 to fire damage and 8 block. Or Defense Mastery at the start of your turn, reduce the cost of defense cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. And you also have Fusion Laser, where you play a card for every card played, deal fire damage to all monsters, apply burn and vulnerable to all monsters. This one is so good, because of the vulnerable especially. It just means that you really don't need vulnerable that much on your supports, which is so good. That's Guardian, which is once again a supportive card. And then for level 5 you have Tierlist, or Indomitable. When fully blocking a hit in X shield, X dissolve the damage blocked, which is fine. It's definitely more supportive side again. But as you can see, he's a warrior that actually wants to deal fire damage. Now for his starting deck, he has this one, which is great. Heat Laser, all monsters take fire damage and burn. You gain Fortify and Taunt, so the Taunt especially helps for his reactive laser. And then here you have 2 Bluff. A Bluff you can actually eventually upgrade into this version, which is just 3 damage and draws a card. And for the rest, it's actually pretty overall. But it's the same issue that Cornelius has with, and Bria actually as well, is that both Fire and Blunt really struggle in Act 1 due to resistances. And also that Fortify is not as easily accessible as all other buffs that you can actually get. So he does struggle a lot there. Once you get past that though, I do believe he becomes very, very good. But that's the same reason as Bree struggles a lot with it. However, unlike Bree, which has this, he doesn't have such high speed, so that's not an issue. He has Heat Laser, which is an extra AoE card, which is pretty much free. And he just gives himself 45 at the start of turn, so he does start higher. So overall, I am probably going to put him probably in A tier. He is going below Evelyn, like either end of A tier or top of B tier. I'm going to put him in A tier since he is, in my opinion, better than both of these. Though Bree is a very hard contender. She might change at the end of this video. But for now she's on top of B tier. She might be end of A tier later. But this one is so good eventually. Just the starting struggle that a lot of heroes will have. But since his reactive laser does transform damage, it means that you're free to run any card you want, which includes Whirlwind, which is one of the greatest cards ever for warriors. So, and Bree doesn't really have something like that. Cornelius kind of does, but usually you want the other level up actually, so yeah, I'd call Heiner better than both of those. Up next is Laia. Laia is once again a multi-class hero of warrior and healer. Now healer does suck here because once again, same thing as Bernard had, they are not great damage dealer cards in there. But we're just going to start with Overflow. At full health, Sanctify heals for 35% of health that would have healed you at your sides instead. Support it immediately. Purification. The next 3 defense, dispel 2, draw 1, apply Fire Sanctify to a random monster. Once again, supportive. Excalibur. Holy damage plus 3, transform damage to holy. When you play an attack, apply 1 burn, 1 Sanctify to a random monster, and suffer 5 burn. This one's actually great for her specifically, since she's heavily Zeal focused. Zeal. And Zeal is, if we quickly take a look in here, all resistance plus 7% per charge, healing receive from Sanctify plus 20% per charge, and damage done plus 1% per burn charge. So suffering 5 burn will actually increase the damage done by 5%. So this is actually a great level up for her. Then you have Warrior Duality, same as before with Bernard. It discounts either if you play a warrior card, it discounts a healer card. If you play a healer card, it discounts a warrior card up to 3 times a turn. Or Zealotry. Zeal plus 2. Zeal on this hero increases all damage done by 1.5% per burn charge and loses 2 charge at the end of turn instead of all charges. The last part is irrelevant for OTK since you're one-shotting. But all damage done by 1.5% per charge is actually great per burn charge. Because that means that I do 5% of notice, 7.5% damage we have every time. You have Heavily Protection, the next defense for every energy used. All heroes gain 10 shields, 2 zeal, and 1 bless. Put Consecration to your hand, and Concentration deals damage to all monsters, dealing holy damage, burn, fire damage, applies Sanctify and applies burn, and it repeats again, so you do it twice. Or Heavenly Justice, the next attack for every energy used, deal 6 holy to all enemies, apply 1 burn, 1 sanctify, 1 vulnerable to all enemies, to all monsters, and then puts Purge the Wicked into your hands, which Purge 2 deals slash damage and holy damage, apply bleed and burn, and it all equals your zeal times 5, and then applies 7 sanctify to them. The one time I've actually tried doing her, because she's so annoying because of the healer side, this has actually done a lot of damage. Always go this one, even as support actually because of vulnerable. In level 5 you have Beacon of Light, Sanctify plus 1, the bonus of Overflow is increased to 70% and removes the full health requirement. Warrior Duality can be activated 4 times per turn. Or Righteous Flame, burn +1, burn on this hero heals 0.3 HP per charge instead of suffering damage. Seal this on this hero, increase all damage done by 7% per charge. Now her main problem is that she's actually very holy damage focused, but priests don't have great holy damage cards. She does start with this, which is great. And if we look into here, as you can see, there's not much choice here. But she does have, where is it? Holy Storm, which is her main saving grace in Act 1. She does have another point in Act 1, which is, once again, like I said, but other warriors beforehand. You can do Arcane Drain, then you can do Transfusion to apply it to herself, then burn her blood, and then she immediately gains a lot of fury, which makes Act 1 a lot easier, and also future acts easier. So she is alright, but she does struggle in Act 1 purely because of the holy damage. Overall, I am going to put her into, yeah, probably B tier, just because she struggles early on. Well, she does have the warrior advantage, so does she. She's also in here. So I am probably just going to put her here. Overall, there are still some better, obviously, but I believe she's definitely better than these in my opinion, and especially you. So that's Laia mentioned, which heavily focuses on Zeal, which you do actually need a specific card for. If we quickly go back to here, you do have to go for this Holy Slash, basically. It's a 1-cost card and immediately applies all that Zeal. We just want Zeal, which is enough for the burn charges. Later on you might want more, but since you already get +2 Zeal from here, it's probably not worth it. Because Righteous Flame does increase each Zeal on this here to increase all damage done by 7% per charge. But since Zeal charges don't stack, it's probably not worth it to go something higher than just that 1-cost card. And this might actually also be worth it in Act 1 because of Burning Blood. And as said, Burning Blood transforms your bleed into burn. And with Zeal that becomes just extra damage. So it might actually be worth it if you can afford it with the energy wise. Also she has this, so she can also just use this instead if you really need it. If you like are lower on shards or you just don't feel like spending shards on it, you can just use these, her starting cards, which actually insane support, damage dealer, it's fine. So she is going into the middle of B tier for now. She might change, but she feels pretty right over here. Up next is Malika, which is actually another healer. But not only that, she's the first non-multi-class hero that's a healer that we were going to talk about here. And she is very tragic, honestly. Her main skills is an innate trait is when you apply dark charges, heal the most damage hero for that amount. This heal does not gain bonuses. It's only when she applies them, so you can't have a support apply them. Malika herself has to apply them. Level 2 we have Jinn Ritual. Jinn Ritual. When you apply dark, all heroes gain regen, less 6 uses. Supportive. Then we have Yen Ritual. For every regen charge you apply 1 dark to the highest HP monster. Also supportive, so it's not great already. Jinx, when dealing damage with a hit, apply do dark. Okay. Healing Brew, when you play a healing spell card that costs energy, refund 1 energy and grant 2 regen to the most damaged hero. 3 times per turn. Okay. Vaccine. Every turn apply 8 dark to all monsters, gain 4 regen and 2 buffer. Last 4 uses. Not great for OTK since we're going for 1 turn kill. Love Enhancer. When you play a card, for every energy used, all heroes gain 1 vitality. Last 1 turn. Shadow Form, all damage done, plus 30% and dark plus 2. Finally, actually something good for damage side. And a Mojo, regen plus 1, vitality plus 1. When you play a healing spell card, dispel 1 to all heroes. Once again a support. Her starting deck is also not good at all. She has this, I guess, but that's really her. She doesn't really have anything good because she is the healer, and healer have such tragic damage cards. And it's really sad because she has such a cool design in my opinion. She's also, if I remember correctly, the first black hero to get added to the game. So it's nice to have the representation, but it's sad that she's pretty bad in the current game. Not only as a damage healer, but also as support. At least when going for something like OTK. Now, with the balance changes of Andrin and Magnus, I hope that she's one of the, either in the next balance patch or the one afterwards, because she really needs one. So, where I'm going to unfortunately have to rank her in D tier. She doesn't have the saving grace of being multi-class like Bernard, and she's easily just worse than everyone else. So I am going to have to put her in D tier for now. Maybe if she gets a balance patch, it will change, but for now, she is just not good enough to be good enough, yeah, unfortunately. Up next is Magnus, which another warrior. And same with Andrin and Evelyn. He is one of those heroes you unlock at the start of the game. Now, together with Andrin, he did get his traits reworked. So I'll first mention his current traits, his starting deck, and then kind of compare to the old version. Now, it's well trained. At the start of combat, gain 2 reinforce. When you play 0 cost attack, spell, or defense, cast it again, which is only once per turn, but can really make a difference since it just deals damage twice. Then you have level 2, you have follow up. When you play a melee attack, reduce the cost of the highest cost melee attack in your hands by 4 until discarded. So if you, for example, play just a 0 cost attack card, if I can quickly find one. Like for example, you play... Where is it? Okay, hold up. Like if you play this one, for example, and then afterwards you quickly discount it and then use something like Whirlwind afterwards, it's going to have its cost reduced by 4, meaning it only costs 3. And especially if you can use some other ways to reduce its cost to 4 already. And then use that card to reduce the cost to 0. And then use this, it actually still counts for this, since it costs 0 that turn. Which is great. The other person is a Wolf card, which is definitely a supportive card. Next is offensive training. At the start of your turn, reduce the cost of melee attack cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. Well trained, you can activate one additional time each turn. So now you have 2 triggers, which is great, because now you can really use that 0 cost card into this, then use another 0 cost card that just got reduced. Or defense training. At the start of your turn, reduce the cost of defense cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. Well trained can activate 1 additional time each turn. It's quite obvious that this is a supporter side. Turn the clap. All damage plus 225%. That's an insane damage buff, since that's all the way at the end it gets the damage buff. And then the next attack deals 24 lightning damage to all monsters and applies 12 spark to all monsters. Or Valiant Defender, which is quite a support card, which applies block, inspire, and fortify to the lowest block hero every time you play defense, for 8 times. Level 5 is Weapon Expert, all damage done plus 7, all curses applied plus 1, except Disarm, Silence, and Doom. Immune to Fatigue, well trained can activate 1 additional time each turn. It's a lot, but it's great for damage. Armor Expert, Energy Regen plus 1. At the start of your turn, reduce the cost of the highest cost defense in your hand by 3 until discarded. Well trained can activate 1 additional time each turn. So together with these two, this actually can reduce any 4 cost card to a 0 cost card, which is great. But we are here for damage dealers, so it's honestly a pretty good setup of cards over here. Especially this one. Because of, well, you can use this mage called Wilbur, for example. Now Wilbur is pretty interesting because this card specifically, duplicate 1 spell from your hand and put it at the top of target's deck. So you can give a spell to Magnus. So Magnus can actually cast a spell that gets this damage buff, but does not consume it. So if you are able to get multiple of these, you can actually get a whole lot of damage out from just spells already. Now for a starter deck, yes, Captain's Howl, which is actually amazing, because it's just 3 vulnerable immediately, and with a perk it's 4, which is great. Int Enrage, which draws a card and gains some energy. So that's similar to Gregory, it's just more energy for him to play with, especially Act 1 that's useful. So Act 1 he actually is quite fine with the Well Trained as well. And if you look at his earlier states, as you can see, he used to have Rend instead of Precise Strike. And also his repeat 0 cost cards did not exist yet early on. As you can see, so Well Trained still does the same thing, but instead of the next attack reduces highest cost attacking your hand by 5 total discarded, here it's just 4 until discarded. So this is technically a nerf, but it's honestly fine. So it's mostly so well trained that that's OP. All cards used to be vanish. Offense mastery used to do nothing else special. Same goes for defense. Thunderclap actually used to be 200%, so it got a buff for some reason. Valiant Defender is not much different at all. Like, it does have the +6 charges, which is annoying, but it's still fine. Weapon Expert got a huge buff, and so did this one, which ran from Tierlist to Armor Expert. So his rework actually made him even better than he used to be. So before rework, I'd probably put him somewhere in C tier, maybe end of B tier. But now with his rework, I am going to put him higher than that. It's actually going to go up to A tier. It's easier to play than Heiner, honestly. It's also called him easier to play than Evelyn. So he is quickly, I think this just does it a bit better at Act 1. And past Act 1 you are usually just having a lot of an easier time anyways. The last boss might be where he outshines him a little bit, but because of well trained, but it's still honestly going to be a great run either way. I choose him just a bit higher because the extra fury that Gurkly can gain that Magnus cannot gain, even though it's the burn of blood and transfusion that all warriors can do. Gurkly has that extra bit of fury that I think puts him just above Magnus, at least for Act 1. And Act 1 is a huge deal in this tier list, because Act 1 is one of the biggest struggles for any hero. Past Act 1 is usually not that big of a deal. Up next is Navalea, which is once again a multiclass hero. She's a multiclass of warrior and mage, as you will be able to see right here. Now she's actually very strong, and you'll quickly figure out why. Her innate trait is Hatred. When you are under 50% of your max HP, all damage done plus 30%. For every 1% of missing HP below 50%, get an additional 2% to all damage done. So that's just an insane damage boost. And as I've stated before, it is an OTK tier list for damage dealers. So being low HP usually doesn't matter much because you're one-shot enemies anyway. Level 2 is Shattering Fists, which increases blunt and cold damage by 3. Damage with hit, apply crack and chill, which lasts 20 uses. It's you have to really either use either of these two obviously to make proper use of it, but for any other strategy it's pretty terrible. You also have Shadow Imbuement, Dark Charge plus 2, transform damage to dark. When you play a card, apply 2 dark to a random monster, which lasts 12 uses. Also not great, so that's sad. Mage Duality, as I said before with others. If you play a mage card, reduce the warrior card's cost. If you play a warrior card, reduce the cost of a mage card 3 times per turn. Name of Hour of Despair, Scorch plus 2. Scorch on enemies also reduce all resistances by 5% per charge. This is alright. A 9 will. When you die, resurrect with plus 3% HP and gain 2 invulnerable and 1 doom, which lasts 1 use. Now this is actually amazing if you can take proper use of it. Because it means that you are really only at 3% HP. So you have 30% HP from being below 50% HP. 30% damage from being below 50% HP. But not only that, you are at 47% of your HP missing. So that times 4 equals 40, 80, 160, almost, yeah, more than 200% damage increase right there. But it does mean you have to kill them on her turn. Because do remove 1 charge end of turn and then she immediately dies. And you can dispel prevent it, so that's very annoying. Default Legacy, the next 2 spell for every energy used apply 1 decay, 1 scourge and 2 dark to all monsters. This is also, it's fine. Maybe if you play specifically into dark setup, since decay can also with perk reduce the dark resistances, as we see right over here. Decay and enemies also reduce shadow resistance by 8% per charge. Or you use Scourge, which from her Aura of Despair can also reduce all resistances, but it does mean you cannot have duality. And then level 5 Unrelenting Resentment, the bonus of hatred is increased to plus 60% to all damage done when below 50% of max HP, and the bonus to all damage is that plus 6% for every additional 1% of missing HP. So this is honestly such a good damage upgrade. You can also do Unholy Blight, Scourge and enemies can stack and spread 100% of dark charges. Major Weather can be activated 4 times per turn. Their starting deck is it's really not that great. She does start with this, which is great against bosses since it's her speed up to 2, so she can just do 3 hits into enemies, and technically 6 hits because of the 2 different damage types. But all of the rest is not that great. She does have this to immediately gain energy, and this which can be used later, but the rest is kind of mediocre. This is fine, it's a bit expensive though. However, because of her hatred and her duels class, you can basically run any damage type you want with her, without struggling much. Relatively struggling much. And especially if you look at echo spells, especially with something like this, she can easily just one-shot all enemies with him. She doesn't add repeat like Althea does, but she just deals a lot more damage in one hit, which makes it insane. And if that's not enough, you just use Mindstorm to just repeat 3 times. And if you can also just get this one, which also repeats 3 times but deals more damage. She's insane with it. Most common setups actually with, it's not exactly most common, but a very strong setup is using the following, which is not you, it's Icebreaker. When you apply Crack, you deal cold damage and apply Chill. Now, because of its Shatter and Fish, you can actually have 3 triggers for 20 uses, which is insane. So yeah, highly recommend that setup. So overall, because of how easy she is to relatively use, she's easily going in S tier, and I honestly would call her the best hero in the game, because Hatred is so good. And if you ever do need some healing, you can just add the following hero as a support, which by the way, they're both DLC heroes, but they're from the same DLC, which is great, because it quote unquote saves you money. Which this equals targets missing health, so if you get low on health, you just use this, you get to around 50% HP, and then you can just continue with Hatred, which is amazing. So yeah, I'd easily call her best hero in the game. She has a very easy Act 1 and all other acts. I've actually started using her a bit early on when I was still not as knowledgeable as I am now, and I use such a terrible deck with her, and I still easily won the boss without even really trying at all. So yeah, she's easily the best hero in the game, in my opinion. Up next is Nanakil. Nanakil is a ranger which can be very confusing to play if you don't know which his traps are. He has the trait of Loaded Gun. At the start of your turn, reduce the cost of range attack cards in your hand by 2 until they are discarded. Whenever you play a ranged attack cards, you suffer reloading. And reloading means you cannot play any more ranged attacks that turn. So that seems a bit counterintuitive, but since reduce the cost, you can actually just get something like this, or if we look into here real quick, something like Rain Barrage, or probably something like Multi-Shot for free, actually. Now level 2 is extra gun power. All damage plus 25% when you play a ranged attack, draw 2 cards, and it lasts 1 turn. Proximity Mines, Taunt Charge plus 1, damage for others, 2 fire damage, apply 3 burn, and lasts 2 uses. Double Barrel. When you play a ranged attack card, gain 2 fury and 1 fast. You suffer reloading after playing 2 ranged attack cards instead of 1. So now you basically just have the option to play 2 of those very cheap cards. Mounted Cannon. When you play a defense card, it costs energy, put a blast card into your hand. Fast and Furious, speed plus 1, fast and fury charge plus 1. The next 6 melee attacks gain 1 fast and 1 fury. Repair Kit. The next 6 defense, a random hero covers 30% HP, a random hero gains 8 block, 5 regen and 1 reinforce. And in level 5, all damage done plus 20%. Immune to slow. Fast on this hero increases all damage done by 1 per charge. Exoskeleton, where you play a defense card that costs energy, refunds 1 energy and gain 1 fortify. This is clearly a supportive side with torrent, defense, block, etc. And here's usually where people fall into the mistakes of stuff like reloading and playing into fast too much. Because he also has to start an item of Rocket Boots. Fast on this hero can stack, but lose all charge at the start of the turn. Now how you need to deal with this is basically Loaded Gun and Double Barrel. You just need to treat as 2 very cheap ranged attacks you can just easily play. Do not fall into the issue where you have too many ranged attacks that you cannot play. That's just not worth it. How you want to play him is like 1 or 2 ranged attacks which get reduced. For the rest, just only melee attacks. And because of how Fast and Furious works with extra fury charges, extra gun power which increases all damage, Greased Gears which increases all damage and makes Fast also increase damage, it actually becomes an incredible damage dealer. Now his problem with his starter deck set is not too good for dealing damage at all. So he's sadly going to go lower based on that, but overall, especially his level 5, level 2, and the fact he's a scout, so he doesn't struggle too much. He actually isn't going too low on the tier list. He does struggle more in A1, else in Act 1. Else would easily go S tier in my opinion, because he is reducing ranged attacks and all that, which does help a lot in Act 1. But I'm just going to put him in A tier. I will put him over here, probably. Because once you play him properly, he can actually be so good. Problem is just not falling for having too many ranged attacks and not falling into using way too much fast. Yeah, he's actually pretty good with all his upgrades. Just not as intuitive as you might expect him to be. Up next is Nevermore, also known as Burp. He is once again a warrior, but he's also a multi-class of healer. So, yeah, actually has a very unique system tied to only him, which is runes. basically he has 3 different rune types, and on this part we will only be focusing on the red runes, so that's his offensive power. So, a Rune Weaver is when you play a card for every 2 energy spent, gain a rune. If you play a damaging card, it's a red rune. Red rune. Red rune increases the mark +1 per charge. In addition to this, upon reaching 2 charges, damage an enemy applies mark on them. Upon reaching 3 charges, damage an enemy also applies mark on target side with a max charge amount of 3. It can be purged unless specified. And then you have Obsidian Print, which increases dark and mark charge per 1, and then by damage on hit, it deals extra slash damage, applies more dark and mark on them, equal to your red runes times 1, and it has 6 uses, so it's basically kind of like free, but a bit weaker since only 6 uses. Or the other side is Death Caress, which on self, all resistance -5%, damage with hit, apply decay and vulnerability equals to your blue runes. Then we have Reapin, at 3 red runes, reduce the cost of damage cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. So that's actually pretty good, since once you have gotten all your red runes you need, you would actually very much prefer the cost to be lowered, so doing this is actually great. Or replenishing, at 3 green runes, reduce the cost of healing spells card in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. Cataclysm, damage with hit, deals slash and shadow damage to all enemies, equal to all your runes times 9, and then purge your red runes. It's only lasts 1 use, so it's definitely going to be a finisher against AoE enemies. Or Dark Sucker, where you play healing spell, all your heroes gain X reinforce, X courage, X equals your all your runes times 2, and purge your green runes, and last only 1 use. Level 5 is mark +1, mark on enemies now increases damage taken by 2 per charge instead of 1, and at 3 blue runes reduce the cost of skill cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. Or Runic Empowerment, whenever more applies Reinforce or Courage, all heroes gain 1 infuse. At 3 blue runes, reduce the cost of the defense card in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. So if you look at the starting deck, he doesn't really have a good starting deck. This one is probably his best part of the starting deck, but still not great. This one also isn't that good. It does still just damage to everything, so it's still fine. But this is useless, this is useless, this is bad, this is useless, this is fine. It immediately gives him some runes. This is also pretty bad. And his Act 1 can kind of struggle since he doesn't have something like Rookery with extra fury and energy, or Magnus with the repeat and extra energy and stuff like that. But I have noticed that the mark application from him can actually, especially early on, make a huge difference. So mainly for that reason, I am going to be putting him in B tier instead of in C tier, purely because of all the mark you can apply. It does have a maximum amount of charges if you quickly look, purely if you play on high madness. It's only max of 50 marks, so only 50 extra damage, which does hold him back a lot, else he would easily be A tier. I'm going to put him in A tier and probably over here. Because unlike Bree, he doesn't have something like insta-win once you get to level 2. It's a similar tin, but it isn't the same kind of tin. So for now he's going in B tier. Would also help if you had the duality skills of that others had, that other multi-classes have, but sadly he doesn't have it, so it's going to be just a bit lower. Up next is Netcollect, which is a healer, which is heavily going to restrict him once again, because in theory he's actually quite great. He has the starting trait of Mental Leech. At the end of your turn, apply 1 insane to all monsters and heal all heroes with 20% of the insane and 10% of all the side charges in play. This heal does not gain bonuses. This is obviously not great for OTK damage healer. Support, it's fine. For level 2 he has Night Terror. It applies to a monster, reduce all the resistances by 20%, and when they get hit by others, he suffers 4 insane and the enemy suffers 4 insane and 3 dark for 7 uses. Or Chilling Gauge, which is his main damage tin, which increases chill and side charges by 1. When damage with hits, deal 12 cold damage, apply 3 chill and 1 side, which lasts the whole turn. Mind Devourer, Mental Leech activated twice at the end of the turn, or Resourceful. When you play a skill card that costs energy, refund 1 energy, apply 1 side to all enemies. Up to 3 times a turn. Chosen One, Insane Charges plus 1. The next 4 spells apply 3 Insane, 2 side, 1 vulnerable to all monsters, gain 2 powerful and 3 insane. Or Faded Future, every turn reduce the cost of the highest cost card in your hand by 10 until discarded, last 2 uses. Can apply to anyone, but for OTK it's not great if he's a damage healer. It's actually great with Magnus since it basically reduces any card to 0 cost, meaning it triggers his passive. With Incubation, upon pickup, add a friendly tadpole boon card into each hero's deck, which I might be able to check here. Can I check it here? It says all the boons. Here, friendly tadpole. On draw, draw 1, gain 1 energy, gain 1 energize, 4 vitality, suffer 6 insane, heal 28. And then or Omniscient, Sight plus 3, Inspire plus 1, and Buffer plus 1. As you can see, he's heavily getting carried by this. That's obviously his best passive, his best level up. Now his starting deck is very rough. He does have this, which can make himself more consistent, but it also costs energy, so usually not a great option. And if you look in here for cold, we have 0 options. So you pretty much need a transform to actually deal all the cold damage. Someone like Evelyn or a weapon to transform it. So this also means that Act 1 is huge struggle. You're basically going for holy damage carry again. Because if you play mind or shadow damage you need to invest into a perk. And insane is usually not worth it since holy damage just has better cards for the Act 1. And then in Act 2 and beyond you can just use Chilling Gauge to carry for a lot of the stuff. But as said, his main struggle is going to be early acts, especially Act 1. So he is easily better than Malika, but I'd say he's pretty much on the same tier as Bernard. Probably a bit better because his level ups actually do help. So he's going top of C tier for now, until he maybe eventually gets balance changed, or I feel like it just isn't right. Up next is Narada. Narada is once again a healer, but she also is a multi-class hero together with mages. Now she's actually the first multi-class hero that is not locked behind a DLC, which is great. However, the unfortunate thing with her is that she's not good, especially not as a damage healer. She has revealed dreams. After an enemy is summoned in combat, apply expose to them. When you play a card that costs 3 or more and there are no exposed enemies, apply expose to a random non-boss enemy. Exposed enemies take 50% extra damage from all sources. When an exposed enemy dies, gain 1 energy. Problem with this is that it cannot apply to bosses. It's limited to only applying to either summons or when there's 0 exposed on the board. And it costs a lot of energy to even apply. Now for level 2 she has Purifying Resonance. When a hero is dispelled, for each curse dispelled they recover 7 HP and they gain 11 block and 11 shield. Or Cursed Mirror, damage by others, apply 1 Scourge, 6 Dark, gain 3 Vitality. For level 3 she has Dark Mercy, Dark plus 2. When Dark explodes on an enemy, heal the most damage hero for half of the damage done. This heal does not gain bonuses. Alright. Rhythm of Magic. When you play a spell card, reduce the cost of the highest cost spell card in your hand by 3 until discarded, but 1 time per turn. This is probably her best bet at being a damage dealer, is just this passive being decent. Can make it a lot easier early on. Dream Harmony, run overheal game 1 energy and game 1 inspire, not useful. Nightmare Storm, transform all curses into X Dark, X equals 0.5 curses. So if you have 100, for example, chill curses, that will get transformed to 75 dark curses and will immediately explode in one big explosion. The only reason you usually use this is to as if you can kill the enemy guaranteed with it. Now this does have the problem with that Scorch and stuff like that doesn't apply to it properly yet as it should. So it's not as great as it sounds usually. Mind Collapse, the first spell you play each turn, applies 1 sleep to all targeted enemies. After playing your first spell, the rest of your spells cost 1 less this turn. When sleep is removed on an enemy before the turn starts, they suffer 10 shadow damage. When you apply Dart to an enemy with a card, apply 1 extra. When you apply Sight to an enemy with a card, apply 2 extra. When you cast Dark to explode an enemy, deal shadow damage to the target equal to the number of dark charges. This damage is not affected by modifiers. So basically, she heavily relies on dark explosions, which is also already not a great way of dealing damage, since dark damage is so much better. Because dark damage is not dark explosion is not increased by powerful, fury, bless, or sharp, but direct damage is. Now our starter deck is also terrible. Like this just feels so random to me. All of this, especially you. She does a Shadowbound, which can make a difference, but it's also quite expensive for a starting card. So overall, she is actually so bad. I'm going to put her in D tier. I think I'm going to put her better than Malaka, but they're very interchangeable. They're both not that good at all. So for now she's going into D tier until she hopefully gets balance patched. Hopefully soon, since she is a free DLC character, so would be nice for everyone to be able to enjoy her. Up next we have Otis, which is another healer. Now, it's unfortunate that he's a healer because it's actually so good as a damage healer, potentially. Here's the innate trait of Shielder. When you apply shield charges, heal for 30% of that amount. This heal does not gain bonuses. It's not useful as damage, so it's okay. Praise the Sun, increase burn and sanctify charge +1. And when he deals damage with hit, he deals fire damage, applies burn and sanctify. So this is basically just another breed type of passive, I'm going to call it. Or he has Unwavering Faith. When you apply shield, apply 2 courage and 1 vitality, which lasts 1 turn. Supports, again, this is going to be all support side, but I'm still going to mention it. Sacred Fire, Sanctify +2, Burn +1. Defense Mastery, at the start of your turn, reduce the cost of the defense card in your hand by 1 until the other is discarded. Solar Flare, the next spell, for every energy used, draw 1 card, deal 8 fire damage to all monsters, apply 4 burn and 2 sanctify to all monsters. So they can actually deal a lot of damage. And then immediately trigger this one as well, so it's a good combo. Double Bubble, the next defense, gain 10 shield, put a copy of it into your hand with cost 0 and vanish. Level 5, Reverberation. When you play a holy spell card, reduce the cost of the highest holy spell card in your hand by 3 until discarded, up to 2 times per turn. Or Dome of Light, when you play a defense card, apply 9 shield to all heroes. So as you can see, this left side is very good for dealing damage, but it's mostly burn damage and fire damage, which is so sad. His starting cards are also not that great, so you are going to have to spend a lot of shards on him, which sucks. But also if you look in here again, burn. Oh, actually, no, let's look for fire. Let's see, where can you see someone dealing fire damage? Yeah, nowhere. Oh, you have Sunbeam. That's the only card. So yeah, you're either going to have to transform damage, or you're just going to have to deal with 2 damage types. I believe the best option is just dealing with 2 damage types, since Burn has once again the issue of needing Fortify, which is very annoying to buff. But yeah, he has such good potential, and I really wish I could put him higher. But I think I'm just going to put him in C tier, but then the highest of C tier. I believe all of the above are just so much better than him still, purely because of the classes. It really sucks that all of these healers are ranked so low purely because of the classes not having any good damaging cards. Also, does it help that they only have access to Shadow, Holy, and Mind damage? For Mind damage, you don't have any straight buffs until you have Gustav with level 3 unlocked. Mind damage, Shadow damage only has Sharp, but the Shadow cards in there are also quite horrendous. And Holy damage doesn't have anything like that. I think it mostly relies on having low Holy resistance of enemies. It's kinda sad, honestly. Others has great potential, but unfortunately, unless they add more cards that can actually deal damage to the healer faction, he's just going to stay at C tier for now. Up next is Reginald. He is once again a healer, but he's also one of the 4 starting heroes together with Magnus, Evelyn, and Andrin. Now, he does have pretty good level ups for his damage side. He has Blessed, at the start of your turn gain 1 Bless. That's fine. Divine Retribution, damaged by others, deal 14 holy damage and gain 1 bless, which lasts 4 uses. It's getting hit, so it's not great for OTK. Or Focus Heal, supportive. Chastise, when you play a holy spell card, add a randomly upgraded holy spell card with cost 0 and vanish into your deck. Into your hand, I mean. 1 time per turn. Now, if we search Holy Smite, it's going to mean this one. So this was actually quite good. Or Healing Surge, when you play a healing spell card that costs energy, refund 1 energy and grant 1 bless to the most damaged hero. Supportive. This is going to be his saving grace. The next 4 holy spell deal 8 holy damage to all monsters, apply 3 sanctify to all monsters and gain 1 bless. This heavily increases damage dealt by a lot. Holy Symbol, all resistance plus 15%, heal receive plus 30%, damage by others below 25% HP, recover 10% HP and gain 1 invulnerable. Supportive. And Reverberation, just like all this. When you play a Holy Spell card, reduce the cost of the highest Holy Spell card in your hand by 3 until discarded. 2 times per turn. An Archangel means heal done plus 40%, heal receive plus 10%, and bless plus 1. AKA supportive. As you can see, he heavily focuses on holy damage, but as I've discussed many times at this point, he's a healer. His starter deck also doesn't really help, and he just really heavily struggles in A1 and Act 1 because of the unfortunate selection of damaging cards that they have. So unfortunately, I'm also going to have to put him in C tier. I am probably going to do it. Am I? No, I think it's going to be like this. So yeah, he's going to in C tier for now. Same reason as Nesclect and Otis. Honestly, their starter decks are not great for the uses as a damage dealer, and their class really stops them from being that good. So unfortunately, he's just a C tier for now. Up next is Sigrun. She is a dual class once again. And she's a dual class of Mage and Scout. Now she's actually pretty cool as she has War Maiden. At the start of your turn, gain 1 powerful, gain 1 powerful. With stanza 2, you gain 2 powerful, and with stanza 3, you gain 3 powerful. Now with Storm Challenger, transform damage to lightning, which is great already. The next 4 attack deals 7 lightning damage to all monsters and apply 2 sparks to all monsters. Or Major Groon, Spark and Insane Charge +2. The next 3 spell, draw 1 card, apply 3 chill, 3 spark, 3 insane to a random monster. She once again has duality. When you play a mage card, reduce the cost of the highest cost scout card by 1, and vice versa. Spell Sinner, when you play a song card, put a fire, cold, or lightning random spell card in the same cost +1 in your hand with cost 0 and vanish 1 time per turn. For level 4 she has Store Smite, which increases lightning damage +5. The next 3 attack gain 2 powerful and put Thunderbolt into your hands, and Thunderbolt is basically just another free attack to deal damage with, since in this instant it costs 0 and is vanish. Or Odin's Wisdom. The next 2 spell gain 1 energy and gain 2 powerful and 2 blast. Increase the cost of all zone spell in your hand by 1 until discarded. As you can see, it says increase, which is purely synergy with Spell Sinner, since it puts a random spell card of same cost +1 in your hand with cost 0 and vanish. Level 5 we have Valhalla. Powerful +1, powerful on heroes have +8 max charges. Scout duality can be activated 4 times per turn. Or Ragnarok. Gain a Spell Sinner trait. If you already had it, then it can be activated twice per turn, and the base cost of the free spell given is increased by +2 with stanza 2 and by +3 with stanza 3. Now a starting deck is not terrible for a lightning damage dealer, but there are definitely some improvements still. And she will struggle a bit more in Act 1 because while lightning does have some relatively strong stuff to play, like this is an epic card, so you cannot access it. Electricity menu you can access, which is fine, but you're mostly going to have to rely on Shock Nova, which is quite expensive, since the Cold Nova version of this is half cost for the same damage basically. So yeah, she is quite great, but since she is a lightning damage healer, struggles a bit more, so she's going in 8 here. Definitely better than Evelyn in my opinion. Probably also better than Magnus. Going to put him in here for now, her in here. She's a great option as a damage dealer for lightning, and honestly in my opinion the best lightning dealer. Up next we have Sylvie. Sylvie is once again a scout, and she actually is so good in ranged attacks. She starts with the innate trait of Keen Sight. Sight on enemies also reduces the piercing resistance by 0.3% per charge. So together with restricted power you have a max of 100 sight charges, that is a 30% reduction at max. As she has physical damage, she usually struggles with the resistance. This is actually quite good. And then for level 2 you have target shooting. Piercing resistance minus 20%. Damage by others suffers 3 sides. 1 mark, 1 vulnerable, last 7 uses. Or Elven agility. Piercing damage +2. The next 2 ranged attacks for every energy used. Draw 1 card, gain 1 fast, gain 1 sharp. Elven agility is not that good. Accurate shot. When dealing damage with a hit, apply 2 sight and 1 bleed. Master Ranger. When you play a ranged attack that costs energy, refund 1 and gain 1 powerful 3 times a turn. Now this usually isn't that good, because usually you don't need that much energy. She gets energy from her supports, so by that point you usually want to have more sights to reduce the resistances further to do more damage. And then you have Hawkeye. Sight charge +2. For every sight charge you apply 2 bleeds, and it lasts 32 uses. This is actually something you don't want. You would rather have double shot. The next range attack, gain 4 sharp, put a copy of it into your hand. Copying a card can be insane, because it can be a card like, I don't know, something as simple as just, what is it? What shall we grab? Rain of Arrows, for example. If you copy that and make it 3, then that's going to be insane. Level 5 Eternal Bond. Upon pickup, replace your pet slot with Hawkeye, that's hardly corrupted version, which is this card. So instead of just dealing to the back damage, it deals that damage to all enemies at the same time. Perforating shots, sharp +2, your range attacks ignore block. Now level 5 is actually not that important, simply because there's a better patch to run called Mady, which does back and that deals twice the damage to the back row, aka usually the boss. And that's going to be your biggest struggle. She actually has a pretty decent deck. She immediately starts with this, which is decent amount of damage. Starts with this, which is good for AoE. Starts with this, which is good for bosses. Now, she does start with 3 of them, and that's a bit overkill. Usually you only need 1 of them. She does also have camouflage, which the stealth can actually increase your damage by a decent amount. And you usually want to use it together with Nazclax because of his passive sight application, which can increase your passive usability even more. Now it is kind of hard to max this out because it is 100 charges and you don't want to focus too hard on them. But she is pretty good because of it. So she's going to rank higher than Engine because of it. I'm probably going to put her right in here. That seems like a good spot to me. This one has 2 ways to increase all damage done, and resistance is eventually capped anyways, so she's going to land here. She's a great lightning attacker, so yeah. This one I just feel like there's just a little too little for him to be better than her. So that's going to be her placement for now. Up next is Tools, which is such a good hero and one of my favorite scouts to play. He has the starter patch of Night Stalker. At the start of combat, gain 2 stealth, nothing crazy. Then level 2, Poison and Dark Charges +1, damage with hit, deal 12 shadow damage, apply 2 dark and 1 poison, and lasts the whole turn. Now you are forced into taking the sharp on this hero also increase the shadow damage by 1 per charge. But for a scout it's actually not that bad, simply because this one exists, Fan of Knives, which deals both piercing and slashing damage. So that means you can actually use it properly with him without feeling like you are reducing your damage, because you cannot focus fully into one of the 2 damage types. He also has Subterfuge, Stealth Starch +2, damage by others dispel 1, gain 3 fast and 1 stealth, and lasts 4 users. Level 3 and Venom, when dealing damage with a hit, apply 3 poison. Or Momentum, when you play a melee attack card that costs energy, refund 1 energy and gain 1 powerful 3 times per turn. These aren't really that important. Usually you grab these just because having more energy is better than poison. But poison is not super bad. It's purely because of this one. Poison on enemies also reduce shadow resistance by 0.3% per charge. So it's not too bad. Then you have Hidden Hand. If you play a card that leaves your hand empty, draw 5 cards, gain 3 energy and gain 10 powerful. Last 1 use. It's honestly more of like if you're using him as a support hero. Like if you were using him as a fast controller, so as a damage dealer it's not that great. With Deadly Strikes, all damage +3, damage with hit, apply 2 vulnerable and 2 decay, which just reduces all resistances, but also shadow resistances specifically, and it lasts 24 uses. So it's actually pretty good with him. Then you have White Sleeves. When you play a small weapon card, put a random small weapon card in your hand, cost 0 and vanish. Extra hits are never bad. Or Veil of Shadows. When you play a skill or enchantment card, you don't lose health, 2 times per turn. Now these are all kind of bad to mediocre, but this one's pretty good because it gives them free energy, gives them free stealth and free powerful. So overall, his Act 1 will actually not be that bad compared to some others. And once you get to this, you are dealing so much damage to enemies. It's actually insane. So he's definitely an S tier pick for me. Like, easily. I'm probably going to put him in here. I think your Act 1 is much easier, and that's a bit more important to me because, well, the rest is easier to deal with. So he is going just below Gustav just because of the Act 1 difference. But he's still such a good hero, and he's definitely my favorite scout. Not my favorite hero overall, that one hasn't come up yet, but as a scout I love him so much. Up next is Tula, and Tula is once again another healer. So she is unfortunately just going to get a quote-unquote nerf because of that. But she is actually pretty good as a damage dealer if you can get her going. At the start of combat, shuffle one Spiderling card to each hero's deck. That's fine. Level 2, Holy Hatchery. The next 2 spell, gain 1, bless 1 powerful, shuffle 2 Sacred Weaver into your deck, reduce the cost of the highest cost healing spell in your hand by 1. This is clearly her healing side. Sacred Weaver also healing. But her Premature Hatchling, all damage plus 20%. The next to each spell, put 2 eggshells into your hand, which deals damage to enemies and applies poison and insane. Level 3 you have Temple Lurkers, which sanctify +1. Replace Broodmother Spiderling cards with the Temple Lurker cards. If you have the Cocoon or the Anti-Pet, replace with the Temple Lurker pet. Temple Lurker is more the holy damage focus, and this one's the insane focus. This one's more healing, and this one's more damage. Poison +1, insane +1. Replace Broodmother Spiderling cards with Mental Scavengers. If you have the Cocoon or the Anti-Pet, replace with the Mental Scavenger pet. I think you can actually show it here. Yeah, these are the Temple Lurkers, which heal yourself for 80% of damage done into holy damage. These are the Mental Scavengers, which deal damage equal to your, yeah, they deal mind damage and do not heal, so as you can see they're very mind damage focused. Level 4 you have Cleansing Prayer. Heal done +7, the next 3 healing spell, dispel 3. Put Dispel Magic into your hand with cost 0 and vanish. And this Dispel Magic just dispels 3 debuffs from your ally. Pendulum, the next 3 skills, gain 3 powerful and 1 evasion, put Hypnotism into your hand. That's going to be a lot of damage you can deal with it. Level 5, Spider Queen, corrupts Broodmother, Temple Lurkers or Mental Scavengers cards. If you have Temple Lurker or Mental Scavengers pet, corrupt it. Or Web Weaver. At the start of your first turn, apply 6 insane, 6 poison and 1 shackle to all enemies. Shackle on enemies is removed at the end of turn and reduces damage done by 30%. When shackle on enemies is removed, they suffer too slow. His starter deck is honestly a mess. It's healing, it's holy damage, it's deja vu, it's all over the place. Especially the holy damage feels a bit out of place here. It also doesn't help her damage side. Deja vu is not that good. So she will struggle a bit in Act 1 like all healers will. But once she gets past that, she is at least going to top of seed here. I think I'm going to give her bottom B tier. Just because of, I believe her level ups are just better than Otis, etc. Like I believe they're better than Otis, Nesglect and Reginald. Just because they increase damage, give her extra cards, etc. And those cards are, I believe, what she needs more than just extra hits. Especially a level 2 ability that increases damage and also gives more cards to deal more damage with, instead of just add an extra hit. I believe it is just better overall. So she's going bottom of B tier for now. If she had better cards to play with in her class, she could easily go to A tier and even S tier. But sadly, all the priests don't. So that's unfortunately going to be her quote-unquote nerf. Up next is Valerion, which is another healer. But this time he is also a multi-class hero, which does kind of save him. We're going to start with his level ups. When you apply bleed on an enemy, apply 1 leech. He is also the hero that added leech to the game, so you have him to thank for that. And level 2, bleed and blight. For every burns or dark charge you apply 1 bleed. Max of 2 times a turn and lasts 14 uses. Life Surge, leech charge +1. When you apply leech, all heroes gain 1 vitality, lasts 6 uses. Neither are death grades. Crimson Ripple, bleed +1. Bleed on enemies also reduce fire resistance by 0.5% per charge. Applying bleed on enemies also applies 1 burn 1 dark to the target side, 2 times a turn. Voracious, leech +1. Leech explosion heal is increased by 50% and additionally grants 1 regen to all heroes. Blood Bargain. When you play a card, for every energy use, lose 8 HP, gain 1 energy, last 1 use. This is like his main saving grace, honestly. Because if you just use a very expensive card with him, you can just have 2 of that cards. Forbidden Feast, damage with hit, heal all heroes for 10% of the damage done, apply 6 leech to all monsters. Lasts 4 uses. Energy Spike, when leech explodes on an enemy, grant 1 energize to all heroes. Or Hemostasis, when leech explodes on an enemy, grants 1 vitality, 1 inspire to all heroes. Starter deck's also pretty bad. This is more if he was sport. This is fine, this is okay. This requires bleed on enemy, so it's not that great, honestly. And yeah, he overall just really sucks overall. Like, he's going in D-tier, but he's only going above Malaka purely because he's a mage, so you can actually have some decent cards. But his level ups don't help at all with his goals. And his Act 1 is a huge struggle. Because you basically have to replace his whole deck. And it's already bad enough shard cost wise. So yeah, it's going to be a struggle playing with him as a damage dealer. Not impossible, it's obviously not, everyone can be run, but you're going to struggle at least at the start. Up next is Wilbur, which is once again another mage. He is the original lightning mage, well, if you don't count Evelyn, that is. He has, at the start of your turn, grant 1 energize to a random hero. Very supportive, actually. Circuit Overload, Spark Charge +3. When you play a card, for every energy used, apply 1 spark to all monsters. So this is just applying a lot of spark, that makes him do a lot of lightning damage and reduce the lightning resistance. Or Skillful, the next 4 skill, draw 1 card, gain 3 powerful and 2 fast. Voltaic Arc, Spark +1, spark on enemies also damage the enemy with spark charges itself. So that basically means that he's actually going to become a bit more consistent, especially against bosses. Or Scholar, when you play a book card, reduce the cost of the highest cost card in your hand by 1, only twice a turn. It's okay, I usually just go for Voltaic Arc. Tesla Coil, when you apply Energize, deal 13 damage, apply 3 spark to the highest of your monster, lasts 10 uses. Problem is applying Energize. Better of using Transcribe. The next book, gain 2 inspire. Put a copy of it into your hand, cost 0 and vanish. As Seppa forward Magnus, you can then use this, duplicate 2 spells into his own deck. And if you're able to reduce them beforehand, the reduce cost also gets added into your hand, which is actually pretty decent. Quantum Reactor, Spark +1, all damage done +30%, or Energizer, Energize +1. So it's pretty much just Circuit Overload, Voltaic Arc, Transcribe, Quantum Reactor. His starter deck is not great. There have definitely been better ones, like Grookly, etc. And as we've discussed before with other lightning mages, Act 1 kind of is a bit of a struggle. Not as much something like Priest or Blunt in my opinion, but it's still kind of a struggle. So, to rank him on the tier list, I am probably actually going to add him on the top of B tier, I believe. I don't think he quite deserves A tier just yet. Just because these two are just better lightning mages overall. But it has some cool things you can do that no other mage can do. Which is called free multiple lightning bolts in one turn. Technically they can do that, but like not as consistent as he can. So that is actually quite cool. But by that point it doesn't matter anymore what level ups you have. So yeah, he's gone top of B tier for now. Up next is Yogger. He is a warrior. Now he is once again a mostly slashing focused warrior. You start with the innate trait Butcher. When an enemy dies, shuffle one of these cards, premium meat or spoiled meat, into your stack. Now these meats I do remember off the top of my head. Spoiled meat basically gives a hero vitality and increases their curse charges by 20%. Meat just increases their vitality, and premium meats gives them vitality and increases their aura charges by 20%. And all of them also draw a card for the caster of the meat. For level 2 we have Village. The next 2 attack gain 2 powerful, 1 vitality, put Rob into your hand, reduce the cost of highest cost attack in your hand by 1. Rob steals 2 auras from anyone. Just fine. Sausage Factory, the next 2 skill, put Blood Sausage into your hand, reduce the cost of highest cost skill in your hand by 1. Blood Sausage, hero draw 1, heal X equals target's bleed, grants 2 vitality, 7 regen and dispel bleed. Big Bad Wolf, gain +1 to all damage done for every 3 HP above 100% HP you have. This is so cool. Dinner is ready. At the start of your turn, shuffle one of these cards, premium meat or spoiled meat, into each hero's deck. That's fine. Feed the rich. The next food, recover 25% HP, put Gorge in your hand. Gorge, put 1 gourmet into your hand, deal X slashing damage. X equals your HP times 0.3, aka 30% of your current HP, and apply 20 bleed. And then you have gourmet meat, which draws 1, increase aura charge by 20% and grants 2 vitality and 1 energized actually. Or gives to the 4 vitality, charges +1, the next 4 food, all heroes gain 10 block, 10 shields and 4 regeneration. Level 5 Gluttony, when you play a food card, gain 1 energy and 2 vitality, 2 times per turn. Or 3-star Chef, the talent Butcher always guarantees gourmet meat. In the talent Dinner is ready, spoiled meat is replaced by gourmet meat. Now his starter deck is not great. He doesn't have something like Rookly to immediately give him energy. So he does struggle a bit. He does have Rampage which repeats, but it's still not a great card to use. So he's going to be very expensive to replace. However, since he is a warrior that is sharp, sharp / slashing damage, he's actually not that bad. So I'm going to put him in the B tier, but he's better. I think I'm going to put him in here. Yeah, I'm fine with this. I think it's just better than the bird because Mark is so easily capped, but Bree has such better level 2 talent that actually just completely outclasses him in my opinion. But the Big Bad Wolf is very fun to play with. The Big Bad Wolf being the gain +1% to all damage for every 3 HP above 100% HP you have. It's very fun to play around with. Restricted power does cap your... Does it cap it? Vitality. Yeah, at 50 charges, so that is a bit annoying. But there's nothing you can deal with. So yeah, he's honestly a pretty cool hero, and he's going around the top of the beat. Up next is Zack. Zack is actually my personal favorite. He is once again another mage hero. Now you're going to see what his use is very quickly. He has the Pestilent, at the start of your turn, suffer 1 dark and apply 1 dark to all enemies. Fine start and passive. Level 2, the next 3 curse spell apply 3 dark to all monsters, reduce the cost of highest cost curse spell in your hand by 1. So you just deal more damage to them. Or Soul Harvest, the next 3 spell, draw 1 card, deal 10 cold damage to the highest speed monster and also apply chill and dark to him, and then you suffer 1 dark. Level 3 Petrification, dark plus 2, dark on enemies reduce shadow resistance by an additional 1.5% per charge. So in total it's going to be 2.5% per charge, which is insanely good. Dark Feast, at the start of your turn, for every 8 dark you have, reduce the cost of the card in your hands by 1 until they are discarded. It's going to be very good when you're going for multiple turns, but not really in OTK. Level 4 Infestation. The next 6 curse spell, put Plague Rat into your hand. Plague Rat draws you a card, then deals damage to a random monster, transfer in 1 curse, dealing 4 shadow damage, applying 2 dark and 2 poison. Or Death's Embrace, which increases your cold damage, increases your chill damage, and transforms damage to cold. For every dark charge you apply 2 chill, and it lasts 34 uses. Level 5 you have Absolute Darkness, dark plus 2, dark on enemies increase the damage of the dark explosions by 35%. Or Vampirism, which bleed plus 1, chill plus 1, all damage done plus 30%, you yourself for 30% of damage done. This is usually the better one, just because of the all damage done. Now he has a pretty terrible start. He has 1 very good card, which is Black Death, which deals damage equal to your discard pile, so you can just play all your smaller cards first, do this at the end for a big hit. And also it jumps, which is multiplicative with each other, so every jump just deals a lot more damage. And then he has another way to deal that damage, which is Pestilent. So if you run this card, for example, oh no, it's just going to be this card, it will do even more jump damage, so AoE is not going to be a problem. It's actually common sometimes to, on a boss fight, wait till they summon the minions, just to take advantage of all the jump damage. Because of this, and because you can use the Sharpen the Zero all screws shadow damage 1 per charge, you can easily deal with Act 1. So for that reason he is going all the way to S tier. And yeah, now it's going to be hard to rank him because better than, no, he's going to be the bottom of the S tier. Purely because you do need a lot of cards available with him, so he's going to be drawn a lot. And you can't just use 1 big card like most others can. He's going to have to draw into multiple cards. And you're going to have to use DK as well to reduce the shadow resistance of enemies, because you have to keep it low. You cannot get it high at all. After careful consideration, I'm going to move around a few small things that are more based on my personal experience and what I believe is going to be better. First of all, this small change of switching these two. I also think that Bree is going to struggle, at least for me, she's going to struggle more. But just over here, Bird for me that's better. Wilbur, it's interesting. I think I'm going to keep him over here. Magnus, Evelyn, Heiner. Sylvie's just, she's good, but I don't know if she's that good. I think Magnus over her. Am I going to change anything else? You are kind of set in stone. I do agree with all this. Yes, 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 yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, you. No. Because I think this will be better. Yeah. Actually like this more. Bird is easier for me, Nevermore, because of his smart application is at the start. And Wilbur is good, don't get me wrong. He doesn't have anything specific that's of his level ups to make him do a lot more damage immediately. Like level 3, level 2, level 3, level 4. Well, this has our level 2, immediate start, level 2 slash immediate start, level 2, immediate start, and level 2. Immediate start, level 2, immediate start, level 2, immediate start, level 2. Level 2 is also pretty decent here. This is just used overall. She has the healer spells, so she can still kind of do extra stuff that you don't usually want to mix damage types. Tula is great, it's just hard getting her off the ground. Altis, I don't know. I might do this. Just because Altis is so much harder to start. No, it's going to stay like this for now. So I believe this is going to be the final version of the list. There may be changes in the future when there's new stuff released, like a new hero, new cards for specific types, like say they released a new healer card that actually did decent damage, then a lot of the healers might actually go up in value a lot. But this is going to be the final list for now, having Nevalea as first and Malaga as last. Just a quick reminder that this tier list is based on my own opinion and own experience with these heroes. I've realized that I have a lot more trust in characters that actually use Shard as a possible damage boost. And also that I just like Shadows type damage a lot more. So that's also why these two are just also higher for me than it might be for compared to someone else. And additionally to that, this list is just like, it's not a set in stone guide. People can have different opinions. This is my opinion, so this is my list. I did ask for the feedback from multiple people, but I did try to keep it my own opinion. So this is the final list. And yeah, just keep in mind that even if someone like Malaka may be last in this high madness one turn kill list, she's actually not that bad if you have multiple turns or if you high roll a whole lot. She can actually be pretty decent still. And that's from the worst hero. They can all be manageable. Some you just need to work a little extra with. But that's all for me. Peace.